Now that we have been introduced to the peripheral nervous system, let's focus on the general anatomy and the functions of the nerves. Recall that nerves are bundles of neuron axons that are held together with various connective tissues and typically have blood vessels that are winding within them. Individual neuron axons within the nerve are surrounded with a delicate, loose connective tissue that's called the endoneurium. Individual neuron axons are clustered together in small bundles within the nerve that are called fascicles. The fascicle has a layer of fibrous connective tissue that is called the perineurium that holds the fascicle together. We saw a similar arrangement with the skeletal muscles. Individual muscle cells are clustered together in fascicle bundles, and those fascicles are held together by connective tissues that are called paramecium. Superficially, the fascicles of the nerve are held together by a fibrous connective tissue called the epineurium. We see that blood vessels, that is small arteries and veins, are found between the fascicles, and these vessels deliver nutrients and oxygen as well as removing wastes. But functionally, the nerves may be sensory nerves, motor nerves, or mixed nerves. So as we discussed back in Module 10, the peripheral nervous system is functionally subdivided into a sensory division and a motor division. This graphic is giving us a lot of information here, so let's unpack this a little bit. We see that the blue represents sensory input. The peripheral nervous system has a sensory or afferent division that feeds information to the central nervous system from somatic sensory nerves. So these are sensory nerves that we find in our skin, our joints, and our skeletal muscles, as well as the visceral sensory nerves. So from our visceral sensory organs like the cardiovascular, the digestive, the respiratory, or the urinary systems. The motor division of the peripheral nervous system is much more vast. We see that the somatic motor division controls voluntary muscles, such as skeletal muscles, while the autonomic motor division controls involuntary muscle, like cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and glands. The autonomic division of the peripheral nervous system is then further subdivided into the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. So we see that as the sensory and motor nerves that are responsible for relaying information for each functional division to the peripheral nervous system. The sensory nerves carry information from sensory receptors to the central nervous system. We'll discuss some of the specific sensory receptors within another section of this module. The neurons of sensory nerves are typically unipolar neurons, whose cell bodies are located in the peripheral nervous system structures that are called ganglia. As an example, the dorsal root ganglion contains the cell bodies of sensory neurons that enter the various parts of the spinal cord. A single unipolar neuron is represented in the dorsal part of the spinal nerve in this diagram, but in reality there would be thousands of neurons that are packed within there. Motor nerves, on the other hand, carry information from the central nervous system to muscles or glands. The neurons of motor nerves are typically multipolar neurons. Somatic motor neurons, that is, neurons that control skeletal muscles, have their cell bodies housed within the central nervous system, and their long axons extend to the skeletal muscles that they control. Autonomic motor neurons, which control involuntary muscles or glands, exhibit a two-neuron chain, and we say that the cell body of the second neuron in the chain is found within a ganglion in the peripheral nervous system. In the human body, there are only a handful of nerves that are purely sensory nerves or purely motor nerves. The majority of the nerves in the body are what are referred to as mixed nerves. That is, some of the neurons in that nerve will be carrying sensory information, and other neurons within that nerve will be carrying motor information. All 31 pairs of the spinal nerves and 4 of the cranial nerves are mixed nerves.